Here we go. Second 365 Radio, 365 Sports, hour number 2. Last night, Baylor took care of their business and then some. It was great to see Jeremy Sohan back. They did it without James Akinjo. Some players are getting more minutes, getting better when they get that. King McClure, former Baylor guard, ESPN broadcast analyst, joins us on 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio. King, obviously, with Akinjo in and out, and then Sohan was out, and there were some bumps, no question, and bruises. But it appears as if some of the young guys that are starting to get, well, they're getting more comfortable in their role. That doesn't mean they're getting better, but it appears as if 2 or 3 of them. We've seen what Bonner's done. Now, Flagler, when it comes to perhaps the half-court offense, the pick and roll, gets more vision. And your thoughts about what they've done overcoming the loss for a little bit of Akinjo and Sohan?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just Baylor being able to, like you said, get reps. I mean, some of the guys as far as Dale Bonner, I mean, the more comfortable he gets, he'll excel because he's here for a reason. Yeah, he played Division II last year, but he has to just get comfortable, get accustomed to playing at this pace, playing at this level, playing with the pressures of the crowd, the fans. I mean, it's a big difference, a big jump, and you have to make that adjustment. And now you're slowly starting to see, like 5 assists last night. I mean, he's playing well, getting comfortable, looking like he's actually, the Dale Bonner that everybody expected him to be. Ivan Flagler kind of playing out of position, but he can do it. He's good enough to where he can play the point guard and not have to score. So I think you're right. Getting reps is the name of the game. And I knew they would come into those roles. It would just take some time. And you would like to see it happen a little bit quicker than it happened. But it's better that they learn now than later on down the road.
King, what have you thought about Matthew Meyer the last few games where, he kind of, we talked a couple weeks ago, and it was kind of like he was lost in his head about being kind of a defense-first player, but now it looks like he's starting to round out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Meyer, he's just one of those guys that is so talented. I mean, he's 6'9", can do so much on the floor, but I think the biggest thing is, like we talked about earlier, his buying on the defensive end is huge. I mean, I think that's such a major step for him in his career because everybody knows he can score. Everybody knows he can fill it up with the best of them. When that kid gets hot, I've seen him my senior year, his freshman year, he had like 20 points in like 15 minutes at TCU, which is crazy. And if he gets hot, he can score 30 or 40 easily. But I'm loving what I'm seeing out of him, man. He's just taking that next step of maturity, trying not to force too many shots. It's like, normally he takes some bad shots, but he's not trying to force too many bad shots, but he can score and his willingness to rebound and just be tough. I mean, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest knock on him. Is he tough enough? Can he guard? And he's showing that he can do both of those things as well as score the ball sometimes for you. So I'm loving what I'm seeing out of him.
What are your thoughts on K-State at the moment? Obviously that was a tough one last night, but, the Big 12 from top to bottom, King, is obviously very, very stout. What are your thoughts on the Wildcats?
Man, I actually like the Wildcats. I did one of the games this year, and Mark Williams, he had something like 26 and 18 rebounds as a guard, and I was like, bro, this is absolutely crazy. But Nigel Pack, what he did against Kansas, the 36 ball, that's these guys can play. And what kind of sucks, what's unfortunate is that if Kansas State was in any other conference, they'd probably be really, really good. I mean, when you look at it, they're probably really good, but the Big 12 is just so tough that night in, night out, you're playing Kansas one night. You got to go to Baylor. You got to go to Texas Tech. I mean, it's just not easy to do. And sometimes you're going to take those L's. But because Kansas State is losing does not mean they're a bad team. They're still a good team. They're just in a very tough conference. So hopefully, they get notch a few wins and get to the tournament because I would love to see 9 out of the 10 teams in the Big 12 playing the tournament. But, they're just going to have to get some wins. But Nigel Pack, Mark Williams, those guys can hoop. Marquise Noel, they're good. So don't get it twisted. They're still a good team.
King, shooters shoot. Obviously, there are ups and downs when you shoot. You also might I think Michael Jordan might have missed a shot or two. And Flagler had gone through a little bit of a bump in the road because he was also having to play out of position a little bit at times. Although, again, the games against Oklahoma State, it was just dreadful. Everything he tried to shoot, it had no chance. Is sometimes as a shooter, if you shoot, and it's not just a swish, it's nothing but the net. But if you hit the rim, it bounces off the board, and then it kind of trickles in. Can that sometimes kickstart you to get back into a groove?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing is the ball just has to go in.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how, as long as you see the ball go in, no matter if it bounces up, goes in, if it's a swish, you just want to see the ball go in. And that right there can really get you going as a shooter, because normally a lot of times, like you said, shooters shoot. But like when you see the ball go in, you're more confident. And when the ball goes in, a lot of shooters get their confidence goes. So they hit one. All right, boom, I'm shooting another one. They hit two. Then their confidence is like sky high. They hit three, and now they're just letting it fly every single time. A lot of times, once you miss a few shots, and like sometimes they get a little hesitant. But the biggest thing is the ball goes in. So no matter how it really goes in, as long as it's going in, the shooters stay confident. Shooters going to shoot.
King, when you look at the rest of the Big 12 right now at the top with Texas Tech and Kansas, do you see this being a three-team race at the top, or do you think that somebody else can jump in and maybe make a run at the conference title?
Honestly, I really think it's a three-team race at the top. I mean, I think it's Baylor, Kansas, and Texas Tech. I mean, at first I probably would have said two. But the way Tech has been playing, I mean, the way they played at Kansas at Allen, which is not easy to do, took them to double OT. That right there was impressive to me. Whether they won or lost that game, I was impressed with the fight that those guys have. I mean, they're relentless, honestly. Like, those guys do not give up. They play hard. They defend. They're long. They're athletic. I just love everything that Mark Adams has with that squad. Yeah, they don't have a true point guard, but, I mean, the way that they play on the defensive end, I don't even know if we really need one. It might come to bite them in the tournament or somewhere along those lines, but they defend. And anytime you defend, I think you're good enough. And now you're starting to have guys that can make shots. I mean, Terrence Shannon, Kevin McCullough, Malik Wilson, Bryson Williams. Who would have thought Bryson Williams would come into the Big 12 and do what he's doing right now? So I think that those guys make shots, they defend, and I think they can really sneak up on some people. Because, I mean, the series with Kansas is 1-1. The series with Baylor is 0-1 because Baylor lost. So I think right now, I mean, Texas Tech is looking like one of your clear-cut favorites, and I think it's a three-way race.
How much fun did you have watching that Tech and Kansas game a couple nights ago?
Man, I was having fun. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was really, I wanted to see somebody beat Kansas at Allen because it doesn't happen much.
Yeah.
As a player, it doesn't happen. I mean, I know I'm biased, but it just doesn't happen much. We don't see people go into Allen and beat Allen. I mean, and beat Kansas in their home and on their home court. So I was hoping that they could pull it off. Just cheering for the underdog. That's just me. But it was a great game. Ochai Agbaji that's a bad dude right there.
Paul's been saying, and I got to give you credit. You've said this now. It's not like it's not obvious how good he is, but he's the player of the year right now in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, he honestly, you really have to give it to him. I mean, there's a few other guys who you can maybe give it to. Johnny Davis, maybe from Wisconsin, who put up some big numbers. Maybe Jaden Ivey. But Ochai Agbaji, he's just been so consistent every single game. And the way he does it, he's just so efficient with it. I mean, it's a very simple game. He's going to get to the rim, take no more than like 2-3 dribbles, catch and shoot for the three, take a one dribble pull up. Very efficient, doesn't need a lot of dribbles, but he's just been so impressive. I mean, he's made that jump. When I first played him my senior year, you heard a lot about this kid, and they said he's going to be this. And the next year, he just didn't live up to it. The year after that, he didn't live up to it. And now he's finally being that player that everybody expected him to be and showing his potential. And I think he's going to have a great career. I'm a big fan of his, and that's a bad guy.
I guess it would have been 2019. He played well here against Baylor. And he wasn't the best guy in the game, but he played well, and he was in the post-game press conference, and I thought, man, that guy's someone to watch out for. And then here he is a couple years later where his little thing for that team, which has stud players all over it, it's no, give me the ball, I've got it. I've got this. And I think that's what I love about him the most.
Exactly. I mean, especially with guys like Christian Brown and Jalen Wilson and McCormick. Those three guys are great players. But yeah, you're right. At the end of the game, who's taking the shot. Ochai. There's no question about it. He's shooting it like he did in the game. When he hit that three at the end, I was like, no way. And he hit it, and I was like, oh, my goodness. That's a big shot right there. Like, you got to have some grit and some toughness to take that shot. So right there, it showed me a lot about his character because he wanted it. And a lot of guys, shy away from it. He embraced the moment and literally took the challenge and was like, I'll put the team on my back and we'll get this win. So that's what I love the most about that performance.
King, your thoughts on the upcoming Big 12 SEC Challenge? I think Kentucky, Kansas has got to obviously be with a 12-5, the highlight of the schedule. But, Tennessee, Texas is interesting. The Vols there at number 18, plus the Rick Barnes storyline. And, obviously a lot of other good matchups. Your thoughts on the Big 12 SEC Challenge? What are you looking forward to?
Well, first off, everybody tune in at 11 o'clock. I will be doing LSU TCU at TCU. So first off, tune into that one. Secondly, I think this year is very intriguing because normally, like the Big 12 is always good, but I think the SEC, I don't know, has the SEC beaten us the past few years? I think so.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either, but I know the SEC technically has been deeper the past few years, but this year I don't think it's I think the Big 12 is way deeper. So I think that the Big 12 should prevail, but I also think that like the matchup you said, like Alabama, Baylor. Alabama's a good team; they've been inconsistent, but that should be a decent one. I mean, Auburn and Oklahoma. It's a tough draw for Oklahoma because Auburn playing so well.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn's I don't really think they even have a chance in that game because of the bigs. As long as Shaguar is not in the game, I really have a chance. TCU, LSU could be intriguing because I think LSU has lost their last three. So with TCU playing the way that they're playing, even though they took a bad loss to Texas last night, I think that could be a very intriguing game because I think TCU is better than what people give them credit for. I think that the Kansas-Kentucky game will be probably the best game of the day, honestly, like you said. Obviously, because it's two of the better teams. But, I mean, I'm looking forward to this every year. And, of course, do take this seriously. It's always a fun time to watch. So tune in at 11 a.m.
Yeah, we'll do that. LSU TCU with King on the broadcast. And I just looked it up. Yeah, SEC won the challenge last year 5-4. It was a tie the year before that. Big 12 won the year before that. And yeah, it's kind of gone back and forth the last 2-3 years between ties, Big 12 and SEC. Big 12 won the first three of these crossovers. But yeah, the SEC got their number last season, so you're right about that.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it, honestly.
You know what's interesting is that in Mike's live, SEC commissioner, which obviously they built an incredible football conference. He always, believe it or not, wanted to try to see if the men's basketball conference could get deeper. And some of the coaches that they've had arrive the last few years made it better. And so it was actually a goal. And that's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it. But when you add Bruce Pearl and you add Rick Barnes, not that he hasn't been there a long time, he has been, among some of the others, hey, it allows some programs that otherwise have not been successful to have a nice run as well. So, King, did you ever have a shot at Baylor where in your mind you knew you had to take the shot, but you didn't know if you should take the shot?
Yeah, I feel like we've all had those type of shots.
I'm not trying to because I can imagine. There's times everyone's got to go through that, no matter what they do in life.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few times, and I think with that, I feel like when you're playing that way, I feel like there's a few years where I played that way. I was thinking too much. I called it thinking way too much when you're playing. You're thinking more than you're playing. Like if you just play based off of reaction and what the defense is giving you, I feel like that's what makes a better play. And I feel like there's a lot of times where I get in my own head. Kind of like we talked about earlier. Like if I was the type of player, if I missed like one or two shots, I might be a little shy to shoot the third or fourth one. Like my confidence wasn't like a Jared Butler confidence. Like Jared Butler had the confidence he can miss 10 and still shoot 10 more. Like he doesn't care. Like me personally, I missed like 2 or 3. I'm like, all right, let me go find somebody else, see who else is open. Like that was my type of player. But you're right. I thought way too much sometimes when I was shooting and I was playing. No, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't have done that. I should have just went out there like Jared Butler and just played free. But I didn't do that. I thought too much, and that was my problem. I'm an overthinker.
Well, look, Davion Mitchell is kind of the different. Like Davion Mitchell would miss 10 shots, and then he would go in the lab and figure out how I can never miss 10 shots again.
Yeah, I mean, I was the same way too. Like if I shot bad that night, I'm going straight to the gym. I'm getting up some shots, and like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I shooting like this? But then I would get in my head even deeper, like, oh my goodness, if I shoot like in the practice gym after the game and I'm missing, I'm like, what's wrong with my jumper? Is my jumper broke? Do I need to fix it? Do I need to like call my dad and ask? Do I need to call Coach Tang and ask him like, what's wrong with my shot? Like, what do I need to do to fix it? And I would get in my head deeper than that, and I shouldn't have done that. Looking back, I should have changed that. I should have just been more confident and just let it fly.
Hey, I saw you respond to Mr. McCullers' tweet about his son got some, apparently some negative things, in some cases hate, whatever. It's maybe even racism after the loss to Kansas. And I saw your response. Of course, there's no room for that ever. But that you even saw maybe some of your teammates had dealt with that before. Can you kind of give us a scenario there?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I saw that tweet earlier, and it kind of made me mad. Like, it's really I don't know, I never go on Twitter rants, but that just kind of made me really mad because, number one, your son, like Kevin McCullough, he played his tail off. Like, he played hard for the university, did what you asked for as a fan. As a fan, you want to see a team compete. Playing against Kansas is not easy to do. Going to Allen, like we talked about earlier, it's hard to take a team in double overtime. So if you go out there and take a team double overtime, you come up short, all you can ask for is that your team, like, literally played their behinds off and laid everything they had on the line. And that's what those guys did. Not to mention, they did beat Baylor at Baylor, and they beat Kansas at home. So, like, let's not forget that what Kevin McCullough has done for that program. But for fans to take it that seriously to the point to where you have to send death threats and say racist things in his DMs because they lost, that's not a true fan. Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, that right there is horrible, and that there's no place for that in our game. You're not a real fan if you're willing to do that. A real fan is sticking with you through the losses. A real fan is going to ride for you and support you no matter what happens because they know that you gave your all. That's a real fan. And for you to send a hate message to a kid who's 20 years old, the kid just turned 20 years old. Like, come on now. You're a grown person, grown individual sending death threats because you probably gambled a little bit of your money and lost it, and you want to send death threats to a kid. That's not okay. That's not acceptable. There's no room for that in the game of basketball. And yeah, I've had teammates deal with that. I've had people DM me, not death threats or anything crazy. They just talk recklessly, like, you're horrible. You should never play basketball again. Like, you need to just retire from the game of basketball because you're absolutely terrible. You're horrible. You suck. Like, I get those all the time. Like, I'd have had Jake. I mean, one time I was on the bus and Jake got a person type "F you" 100 times, but they didn't say "F you." They said the actual word 100 in a message to Jake, and Jake showed me. And Jake thought it was funny, but like stuff like that, like the stuff that happened with Maceo, and how he was receiving threats too. Like that, there's no place for that in our game. People need to realize at the end of the day, like, yeah, you care, you're passionate, but it's just basketball. Like, it's literally just a game. Yeah. It's not a life or thing. You're not about to lose your job or lose your life over this. This is just basketball. And for people to actually do that to kids, people who aren't even grown enough to pay their own bills, people who are still playing in college for entertainment purposes, there's no place for that. And those people should honestly just not watch basketball and do whatever they got to do. But stop sending hate mail to people, especially people who are 18, 19. There's just no place for that.
You're supposed to bring you joy. Like, you're supposed to watch sports and be happy.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
So if it's making you mad, you gotta stop doing it.
Yeah, I agree. King, thank you, man. Yeah, go ahead.
I said, make you mad enough to where you got to send a death threat. Tell the guy that you're going to find where he lives and kill him. Like, what?
Yeah.
No, that's like,
it's nuts. You would always wonder, social media would be a hell of a nice, better place if people use their real names and their home address and their phone numbers. Thanks for your time, King. Thank you very much. King McClure, former Baylor guard, also with ESPN, has that game 11 o'clock. He mentioned it with TCU coming off the tough loss. Got beat up pretty good last night in Fort Worth by UT. When we come back, Rich,